All right. Welcome back, everyone, to Astronomy on Tap. Thank you all for coming out. This is our 11th virtual, our 45th total Astronomy on Tap, and mine and Jacob's last Astronomy on Tap. We'll be passing this off to Steve Kirby, Arvind Gupta, and Brianna Swatsky. They are going to be the new Astronomy on Tap hosts after this episode is done. But before that happens, we have a bit of Astronomy on Tap history to go over tonight. So we have Dr. Emily Rice to give us a overview of the entire Astronomy on Tap scene, nationwide and international. Then we'll have a look back on the State College chapter with me and Jacob. And as usual, we will have our trivia and astronomy in the news in between. But we need to get started off with our drink. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Mix Master Jacob Luhn. Go ahead, take it away, Jacob. No, you're robot again. As is tradition. So this is, I think, the second or third time this has happened live. We have no idea what is going on, but every now and then Jacob just turns into a robot. Let's see if this is working now. Hello, Jacob. Are you there?
Hello. Yes.
Yes, you're good now, but your
Can
video
you
is
see
off.
me?
I cannot.
Well, yeah, for some reason my phone says that I'm in safe driving mode, and I don't know why it would say that. So I can't. Can you turn on my video? Oh, here we go. I found it. Okay.
Start video.
I got it. Okay. Hopefully, you guys are all patient with me. I'm happy to be here for my final drink. Sorry for the robot voice, but tonight we're going to be making a fun drink. It's a little complicated. You'll need a blender. You don't necessarily need one. You can also make it on the rocks if you want. It'll be slightly different. You'll probably just combine all the ingredients into one glass with some ice cubes. So you can go ahead and do that if you want. But if you are making it in a blender, you'll need 2 different blendy cups and one little blender. If you only have one blendy cup, you can just have another cup off to the side that you can kind of switch out back and forth. And then you'll be combining it into one glass at the end. So you'll kind of need, in some combination, 3 cups or glasses. So this one is not actually going to be beer related. This one's just a pure cocktail. We're going for something fun for our last drink. This one actually comes from the tipsybartender.com. So if you want, you can look up Tipsy Bartender Galaxy Cocktail, and if I'm going too fast, or if you want the exact ingredient amounts. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Into glass number 1, we're going to put an ounce of tequila. And then we're also going to do an ounce of lemonade. And I like mine a little lemonade-y, so I'm gonna give it just a little splash more. I want that lemon flavor to shine through. And then also going to need the blue Curaçao, and you're gonna do about 3/4 of an ounce. Get some good blue color there. And then the same amount, 3/4 of an ounce of Grenadine. I'm gonna be playing some juggle over here with all these drinks. So 3/4 of an ounce of Grenadine, and that should give you a good purpley color. So that's going to be in glass number 1 that we'll blend up. So we can set this off to the side for now. We'll add ice cubes and blend them both together. Again, if you have if you only have 1 cup for your blender, you'll have to kind of swap in and out. So for the second glass, we're going to do 1/2 ounce of vodka. I'm probably going to do a little closer to the 3/4 and swap a little bit of the vodka for the peach schnapps, since peach schnapps isn't my favorite. But it calls for 3/4 of an ounce of peach schnapps. I'm going to do a little closer to 1/2 ounce. I think it kind of overpowers things. It's not my favorite. If you like peach schnapps, go ahead, pour the full 3/4 ounce in if you want. And then into this one, we're going to do another 3/4 ounce of the blue Curaçao. And I remembered the thing I wasn't supposed to do. I was supposed to make this one first so that it was only blue. I got a little bit of the red grenadine leaking in, but I think it should still be fine. And then lastly, another ounce of lemonade. And again, I'm gonna kind of do a little more because I like the lemonade flavor. Oops. Lemonade and just a splash more. So that was 1 ounce plus a little extra. Okay, so we have our 2 glasses here now. And now comes the fun part. We're going to blend. It doesn't on the recipe call for an exact number of ice cubes. I use about 10 per glass. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can also maybe use, anywhere from 8 to 12 would probably be fine. So I'm going to blend this up now, and I'm going to mute myself so that you don't hear all the whirring noises of my blender.
Also, as a reminder to people out there, if you do want to make this drink, you should take a photo and tweet it to us at Astronomy on Tap on Twitter. So, yeah, Jacob, go ahead.
All right, so we have our drink number 1 blended. I'm just kind of getting it to the bottom here. I'm going to try to get off all the blue. And then doing the same thing with the other drink or other cup. Again, about 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go to my other ice cube tray. 7, 8. Ooh, these ones aren't quite fully formed. 9. 10. That should be fine. Okay, and blending round number 2, coming right up. And actually, I think I will add in maybe another ice cube. This looks a little wet. So just 1 more ice cube. Sorry about that, everyone. Go until it's a consistency that you want. You kind of want it to be a slushy type consistency. Okay, now comes the fun part, the final assembly of the Galaxy cocktail. So we have our 2 cups, one's purple, as you can see, and one's blue. And the goal here is to kind of layer them into this glass so you get some nice swirl effect. It's a little difficult to pour out. So I like to use a spoon and just kind of plop in some mounds of slush. Kind of want it not necessarily even, kind of want some fun swirling motion in there. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Kind of layer some in on one side, make it a little uneven or so. But yeah, just kind of have fun with it. Go back and forth. It's almost like making some art. I don't know if anyone ever did the sand art back in the day where you kind of layer some sand, but it's very similar to that kind of effect. But we're going to end up with some pretty cool blue and purple swirls running through. That's nice. It's coming together very nicely here.
And if it is too icy and slushy, you can always throw more liquor in there. That will also make it
That is true.
liquidy.
Or lemonade. I like the lemon flavor and wish that it were a little stronger in the lemon. But that's been a theme. I've harped on that enough. You probably don't need to hear me say that again. And again, just kind of making some fun layers. You can make them as thin or as thick as you want. The choice is up to you. And I'm going to kind of finish out my layers here. I've taken long enough on this drink. Getting pretty full. And then this is definitely best consumed with a glass, or with a straw. So it doesn't really slide into your mouth if you pour it, like tip it into your mouth like a normal glass. And so I like a straw, but we're also going to take a lemon and get a nice slice of lemon. I've already cut this one in half, but we're just gonna get a nice garnish. Ooh. Here, cut a little slit into it so it can rest on the drink, right like that. We're gonna plop in our straw. Ooh, that's nice. See, look at, take a look here. We got some nice purple and blue swirls, galaxy cocktail. What an amazing treat. Excellent. So cheers, and thanks everyone for following along. And if you made this at home, feel free to tweet it at us, your picture. We'd love to see it. And thanks again.
Thank you, Jacob. Yep, that has a lot of liquor in it, so I think we'll have a very good show tonight. All right, so go ahead and get started with the astronomy. So our first talk is going to be by Dr. Emily Rice. So she kind of helped start Astronomy on Tap. She's up in New York. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Emily to come up here and give her talk.
Are you kidding me? Is she a no-show again? Like, good thing I watch every single Astronomy on Tap ever. I am always here lurking in the background somewhere. I will deliver this talk. Shall I share my screen? I can start my video? Yes.
Go ahead.
Help me do this. Oh. I am not Professor Emily Rice, even though we look very similar. In fact, she even uses my picture sometimes. I don't know how I can get her to stop doing this. But I know way more about Astronomy on Tap than she does. And so I will give you the lowdown. I call this the cosmology of Astronomy on Tap, because it's about the formation and the evolution of Astronomy on Tap. I wish I had a blue drink. I was not so prepared to have a blue drink. So I have given this talk before, but I have made it special. I have updated it for 2021, and I've also made it special for State College. You'll see. But let me start before the beginning. Astronomers actually think they might be able to study before the beginning of the Big Bang, but I won't go into that. I'll talk about before the beginning of the Astronomy on Tap Big Bang. We know it actually started with something called Astronomy Uncorked. And that was done in New Haven, Connecticut by postdoc, Dr. Meg Schwam, who was then a postdoc at Yale. And she had two events in 2012, which was only a couple of years ago somehow. And it was so successful that we had some kind of event in New York City, and she said, man, I really want to do this in New York City. Let's do it. I should say, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me say that Meg Schwam actually won an award for starting this, her role in the beginning of Astronomy on Tap. She won the Carl Sagan Medal from the Division of Planetary Sciences of the American Astronomical Society, which is pretty fancy stuff. And I for the life of me, I cannot remember why I put that emoji there. But now Dr. Meg Schwam is a lecturer at Queen's University in Belfast. So she had the very, very first astronomy events at a bar that we know about. And then Meg wanted to do the events also in New York City. And then Emily or Carly, I always get confused about who this was at the beginning. But they said, let's do it. Let's lose the wine stuff and talk about kind of beer more generically. So Carly said, let there be beer. And I kind of helped co-organize the very first event in New York City, which happened this month, just 10 days ago this month, 8 years ago. And it was at a bar called The Way Station in Brooklyn, New York. And you can see we set up a Facebook event and everything. Well, Emily did, but and we even have this nice little logo that we borrowed from a friend of ours that is photoshopped galaxies, I believe, from the Hubble Deep Field onto a pint glass. I think they made it for a podcast way back in the day that maybe had 2 episodes or so. But our first event went pretty well. Facebook remembers everything. So Emily had said, after this event, just about a week later, she started the Astronomy on Tap Facebook page, as we now know it and love it. The event was recorded at that website. That service is long gone. and then she posted on Facebook, maybe we'll do this again sometime. And lo and behold, they did do it again. By the end of that very first year in 2013, not only did Astronomy on Tap already kind of seed other locations in other cities, in particular, the first one outside of the kind of New York City tri-state area was in Columbus, Ohio, led by Dimitri Muna. It also instigated another event in New York City, another location in New York City, which we started by calling Astronomy on Tap Uptown. And you can see our fancy backdrop there. It's actually a sheet that we hung from the wall. No fancy projector screen or anything for us there. And then this still blows my mind. By the end of the year in 2013, we had astronomy on effing deck. On the deck of the Intrepid, USS Intrepid aircraft carrier, under the rear end of the Space Shuttle Enterprise. Enterprise was not an orbiter. Enterprise was a test lander. Still, amazing. That event was totally wild. It came together very, very short notice. You can see from the bottom picture, everybody was just sitting on the floor. We had no tables, no chairs. We did, however, have free booze that very first time. We were drinking champagne left over from some other event, probably not legal, like don't tell anybody. It was very, very fun. And so very quickly, we found a lot of, if not success, then interest in and excitement about Astronomy on Tap. We even got a nice fancy new logo pretty quickly. This was from Alex Parker, who is a planetary scientist and kind of amateur graphic designer. And he took that concept of the galaxies photoshopped onto a pint glass and made it a little bit more presentable for us. And you can see that Emily emailed with him and was very excited about the final result, but we didn't stop at just the universe. He's a planetary scientist. And so he also did Mars, and he did, that is Jupiter, and then Saturn, and then a solar one as well. And you can see some of these logos have been borrowed for other satellites, and then some other satellites have gone off and made entirely their own logos. But this was our original inspiration and kind of our first set of fancy dancy logos. And it continued to expand. So like I said, the very first one outside of New York City happened with Dimitri Muna, who was at the time, let's see, working in, I think he had moved around that same time from New York City to Columbus. Astronomers are by very nature itinerant. we generally tend to move around a lot for education, for jobs, for conferences and things like that. And that very nicely helped the expansion of Astronomy on Tap. So Dimitri started that one. Steph Lamassa is represented by the stick figure and the cats. So Steph Lamassa was also a postdoc at Yale, and after the Astronomy Uncorked at New Haven. She gave talks at one of the ones in New York City, but said, we can do this in New Haven again. And so they started to do Astronomy on Tap back in New Haven. And then we also did one in New York City, or in Washington, D.C., because Steph moved from New Haven to Washington, D.C. And that picture is Jackie Faherty, who was a colleague of mine in New York City, who had also moved to moved to Washington, D.C. And so we had, that one was actually called Astronomy, a flyby event, Astronomy on Tap on Tour, because it was done by astronomers kind of visiting. It wasn't a standalone established satellite yet, but it would be very soon. Meg, after doing the first couple in New York City, actually took a postdoc position in Taiwan, in Taipei. And so she did a couple events there. And then Meg also had collaborators in Chicago. She organized events in Chicago when she was visiting. Emily takes credit for, that looks like it might be Toronto. She visited Toronto, told them at the Dunlap Institute in Toronto about Astronomy on Tap. They started a series very soon after that. And then somebody was visiting, so that little picture down there is of the American Museum of Natural History, where Emily works, and somebody was visiting there, and then went back to Chile and started one in Santiago after that. Emily's also taking credit for, oh, here is Jeff Silverman and Rachel Livermore, who found out about Astronomy on Tap, I believe, from a poster that we presented at an astronomy conference, and they started an Astronomy on Tap in Austin very soon after that. Somehow Emily is taking credit for all of these. That Seattle started very soon after that, I think in the beginning of 2015, maybe. This is a fun one because that guy, his name is Josiah Albertson, and he is not an astronomer. So he is the first person to establish an Astronomy on Tap event. He was actually visiting a friend in New York City, came to an Astronomy on Tap event, was like, I love it, I love it, I love it. Let's start one by me. And I was like, usually we need astronomers to do this. And he was like, I got you. And so he was in Denver, Colorado. Luckily, there's a lot of astronomers around Denver and around Boulder. And so he found them in the bushes and stuff like that, and made sure that Astronomy on Tap got started in Denver and in Boulder. I believe Josiah, now he lives in Oakland and has, and it works for, Spotify, maybe. I keep forgetting. He is also an accountant for musicians. Who, like, we thought we had cool jobs being astronomers. Emily's taking credit for, I don't even know, I'm losing track. I don't know. She thinks she did all these things. Oh, this is a fun one. Space Drafts in Tucson, Arizona actually already existed before Astronomy on Tap, but they decided to join our constellation of satellite locations. And they rebranded themselves, kind of co-branded Astronomy on Tap Tucson, as well as Space Drafts. They were already thinking great things, thinking great punny things. After that, it starts to get a little bit complicated. That's only like the first dozen or so satellites that started after Astronomy on Tap New York City. But luckily, I can show you a little bit how things grew. This animation was made by Jeff Silverman, who started Astronomy on Tap Austin. And you can see these things plopping it down in different locations. This is approximately chronological, and not all of the satellites kind of remain active, and so we call those quiescent if they had a few events but then don't regularly have events anymore. But you can see all over the place, Colombia, Chile, Hawaii, Korea, Taiwan, Sweden, a couple different places in Sweden, Oslo and Norway, a couple different places in England. We're starting to get Budapest. That one's Tel Aviv in the Middle East. Oh my goodness, Victoria, but that might not have happened yet. It's hard to keep track of. There's a bunch of them. I think it finally stopped. Our most recent one, I believe, is London. But then there's other ones that stop and start again. It's hard to keep track of. January 2020, we were flying high. All these satellite locations around the world, we were averaging about 30 to 40 events per month. I'm pretty sure we peaked at 42 events in 1 month, which sticks in my head because it's the answer to everything, life and the universe. But it's also wild to think about. More than one, on average, more than one event per day. With, all the funding that we have, zero funding. Everybody's volunteering. Everybody's kind of doing what they want. We eventually had 80 different locations hosting Astronomy on Tap events. Like I said, some of them were going quiescent as people moved or as people got too busy or something like that. But on average, we were also launching 1 to 2 satellites per month. It was amazing, really, really exciting. And then in March 2020, the website shifts over to having everything be canceled. It was very, very sad. But luckily, in April of 2020, it was our 7th orbitversary, we call them, the 7th anniversary of Astronomy on Tap being begun in New York City. And boy, we rallied. So after a bunch of events being canceled, some people had kind of started figuring out the streaming thing, luckily. And when I'll take credit for this, when Carly said, hey guys, what do you think we do something special for the anniversary? Enough wacky people said, yes, let's do this. That on very short notice, we organized a 7-hour live stream. 7 hours. It worked. I still can't believe it worked. We have a wonderful logo that was made by actually the sister of one of our organizers for Astronomy on Tap Baltimore. We had over 20 satellites represented. So people from those different satellites either organizing, making games, giving talks, fielding questions online and things like that. Over 30 different presenters. We also had music, we had games, we had special guests, we had all kind of fun things going on for 7 entire hours. I still can't believe that happened. It's a very, very proud moment of which I did very little. I said, hey, let's do this, and then kind of puppet mastered a little bit, but mostly all of the satellites jumped in and just contributed what they could, and it was absolutely amazing. We had people all the way from Tel Aviv to the west coast of the United States and all in between. And you can, if you've got 7 hours to kill, you can go watch it on YouTube. It's Bitly still works, I believe, bit.ly.AOTOTC for on the couch. It does start out very awkwardly because we didn't know what we were doing. And so there's a long pause of like the background chatter or a long tail of the background chatter in the beginning. And then it ends very abruptly. And I still don't know why. And I just want to give some credit to why I think Astronomy on Tap works. We have a very secret formula that is not puppet mastering, like I just said that I did a little bit, but it's sandboxing. And if I had any kind of talent like Astronomy on Tap State College does, I would have photoshopped Michael and Jacob's faces onto these 2 little kids. We kind of sandbox. We say, here's what we figured out at the places that we've done it before, but you do you have fun. Do what works, do what you want to do as often as you want to do it, make your own logo, make your own drinks, you do what works for your resources, for your interests, and for your community. And that is, I think, made Astronomy on Tap very, very fun and very, very engaging. That's kind of our ethos there more than anything else. Again, the nice thing about having no funding is that there's nobody to be accountable for. Yeah. And so very last thing, I thought I'd pull together top 10 events from Astronomy on Tap worldwide. This is very, very biased, but I want to give you just a little bit of a sense of some of the amazing things that professional astronomers, amateur everything else, have managed to pull together around the world in the last 8 years. Top 10 is, starting out with number 10 is something that I'm pretty proud of. This is before I got my hair done and my signature style. But we did a special event at Astronomy at the World Science Festival in New York City with science on a sphere here. So our projector, instead of a screen, was a globe. And we did some games, and the game was actually Earth or Mars, where we projected a picture up on the globe, and the audience had to guess whether that picture was Earth or Mars. And then we revealed the answer by having Mr. Mars there, Bobek Ferdozi, who's NASA Mars guy, kind of NASA Mohawk guy, who kind of became famous during the Curiosity rover landing also several years ago. Gosh, I think that was 2012. He kind of revealed the answers with me live during the Earth or Mars game. And my favorite moment is still when I showed one of the pictures from the Curiosity rover. He didn't even get a perfect score, I will tell you right now, but there was one image that popped up and he goes, oh, I know this image is Mars because I took that image, which I thought was a very big flex. But he didn't get a perfect score still. And I think somebody in the audience actually did beat his score to win the prize. Astronomy on Tap Pasadena, I think, kind of has an unfair advantage, which is why I put them at number 9, because they're nerd capital city USA, Nasadena, otherwise known as. But their event is very, very popular. There's the organizer Cameron Hummels in the red shirt there with the mayor of Pasadena down there. They actually got the key to the city from the mayor at one of their Astronomy on Tap events. They were also featured in this documentary about flat earthers that's called Behind the Curve that I don't think I will ever watch. But if you watch that documentary Behind the Curve, Astronomy on Tap Pasadena is in there. Amazing. There's the mayor down there, Mayor Terry Tornek, gave them the key to the city. Number 8, we head over to AOT Bonn in Germany. They have done really well about getting guests that are experts in other areas, not just space science. So here they have 2 actual medical doctors giving talks about things that are very relevant to space exploration. And then actually, I think the woman on the left there has something to do with UNICEF. Oh my goodness, I forget what the logo there for, but I think she's talking about climate change through UNICEF. Big fancy people. And then I also love that they have an Instagram frame that they use for all of their events. They're very good on Instagram, which is nice. Don't look at our main Instagram page because it hasn't been updated since Astronomy on Tap on the Couch over a year ago. Number 7. Oh gosh, well, this was a fun one. Baltimore is great because it's the home of Hubble, the Hubble Space Telescope. It will also be the home of the James Webb Space Telescope when it launches. And this, I think, back in 2015 was the first Astronomy on Tap event to feature astronomy talks at a bar and then have a dance party afterwards. That was super duper fun. Or I would like, it was ruined because Professor Emily Rice was there and she's just super boring, but it was still kind of fun. She left and then I got to go to the dance party. I can't wink, me and Rihanna. Here's another one that's these are astronomers. These are astronomers. This is Astronomy on Tap Baton Rouge, and you might actually recognize the astronomer there playing the ukulele or her nice logo. That's Tabby Boyajian, and she is the discoverer of the WTF star, What the Flux. Or sometimes called Boyajian star or Tabby star, where it was postulated there was weird dips in the light curve discovered by Kepler around this star that was not really explainable by known astronomical phenomenon. And so we thought for a little while, okay, is it aliens? It's probably not aliens, but it was a very, very exciting discovery anyway. And they composed and performed their own song that's called Alien Zombie Comets. Probably not aliens around that star, but it could be zombie comets. And so that was in March of 2018 that Astronomy on Tap Baton Rouge did that. Like, how fun. Here's another one. This one is from AOT Tel Aviv. And this guy wearing a moon shirt, classic, is actually the chief scientist of Israel's lunar mission, Bereshit, that landed, I believe, just last year. They actually famously had some tardigrades on board that somebody put as a kind of an art experiment, but it wasn't a super soft landing. It wasn't as soft as they wanted it to be. It kind of crash landed. And so they were like, oh, by the way, we put some tardigrades on there that might still be alive. Sorry. And so that was not the greatest moment in space exploration, but the chief scientist of this mission came to give a talk about the mission at Astronomy on Tap Tel Aviv. Here's another one from AOT Las Vegas, also late in 2009. They had a piece of Mars at a bar. The bar is also called Astronomy Alworks, which is just fantastic. That's a Martian meteorite that they got somehow to bring to the bar to have everybody be able to see. Show and tell at Astronomy on Tap of a Martian meteorite. Super duper cool. Number 3 is Astronomy on Tap Seattle. This is a pretty packed house. It's outside under a tent at a brewery, and they had over 500 people at this event. That's not the astronomer or not the astronaut giving a talk, but an astronaut gave a talk at this event. Like, that's pretty cool. I think people sometimes confuse astronomers and astronauts, and the way to keep them straight is that an astronaut is what every astronomer wanted to be when they were a kid and then got confused. No, just kidding. But I do think that a lot of the times astronomers kind of want to be astronauts, maybe even not as kids, maybe as adults. Every time that application opens up, I know a lot of astronomers that apply. But most astronauts are not actually astronomers. They're usually engineers, some medical doctors, geologists now. There's only been a couple astronomers who are actually also astronauts. Still pretty cool. Sorry if you can hear the scooters going down my street. Number 2, another astronaut, but even cooler than the other astronauts. Sorry, there's still a hierarchy within astronauts. I mean, bottom, like they're all pretty awesome, but I think as astronomers, we have to admit that any astronomer or any astronaut that's actually touched or fixed the Hubble Space Telescope just shoots way up there in terms of coolness. And this particular astronaut, Claude Nicollier, who spoke at Astronomy on Tap Lausanne in Switzerland, was an astronaut on 2 of the Hubble Space Telescope servicing missions. That's like unbelievable. I still can't believe that we have telescopes in space, number 1. That's just still kind of mind-blowing. But to have one that was launched by people on a rocket, captured again and fixed several times, still orbiting. I can't believe it. The Hubble Space Telescope turns 31 just at the end of this week, actually on Saturday as the launch anniversary. And that guy touched Hubble twice and came to Astronomy on Tap. I can't believe it. Are you ready for number 1? This is totally objective, absolutely unbiased, but the number 1 event that has ever happened at Astronomy on Tap worldwide is everything that you guys have done at State College, past and future. I just love how you've taken, a town with more cows than people, just kidding, and got everybody super excited about space. I love the drinks that you do. You've been so great at having events online during this whole pandemic. It's just fantastic what you have done. I just picked one image that you guys sent me about recreating the Apollo lunar landing, the Apollo 11 mission and the Kerbal Space Program, which you've had tons of different types of speakers, of a huge variety of events. You've really hit a slam dunk, home run, some kind of sports metaphor that I don't fully understand. And I'm really amazed at everything you've done with Astronomy on Tap. And thank you for contributing to my the value of my brand, for which I own nothing and receive nothing. And I'd love to answer questions if there are any questions from our viewers like you. Should I stop screen sharing? I think I can do that.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for that last slide. We really appreciate it. And of course, it's on the web now, so we now know that DJ Carter Sagan's favorite Astronomy on Tap is State College.
That's true. It will live forever.
So we got to ask, of course.
What you've done. You have some questions? Oh, good.
Yeah. What's up with Emily Rice? Why is she such a flake? Why can she never make it to these
Well,
shows?
she is a very responsible professor and parent. And so I think that might have something to do with it, although she could be a little bit better about, not overcommitting, because very often she overcommits and then can't follow through.
Fair enough.
But luckily I'm here to handle things for her.
Also, people in the audience, if you do have questions, please type them in the chat and we can ask DJ Carter Sagan while she's still here.
Yeah.
So how many events have you been able to do? Not just that like New York, but throughout the kind of the nation and the world. How many Astronomy on Tap
I
events?
pulled them up. Did I put the full number on there? The full number overall is something like 1,300. About 1,300 events overall. And we actually had a little bit of a competition going as to which one individual person has given the most talks at different places. And I believe Rachel Livermore is the current record holder. I think she's given talks at more than 10.
Wow.
Possibly even close to 12. Yeah, astronomers get around. Astronomers get around. I've been to maybe, I don't think I'm up to 10 yet. But okay. I have done quite a few. New York, Baltimore, DC, Rochester, New York, but I was a guest there, not a speaker. Seattle, Denver. How many is that? I think that's everything. I might be missing some. But this is a super fun. It's such a fun way. Like secretly, will I tell you guys a secret?
Sure.
It's not for the audience. It's for the astronomers. Like it's a great way to practice giving talks, to practice talking about your science, to do it in a way that you have to kind of earn attention and engagement instead of just, like knowing that a student is going to sit there or a colleague is going to have to sit there and, be respectful for 45 minutes or whatever. It's also a great way to network. It's a great way to practice. It's a great kind of low stakes way for students to practice talking about science and talking about research. It's also a way for us to like not take ourselves too seriously and have fun with what we do. And I hope that that's one of the reasons why it's been super popular.
Do you have a favorite drink that you've had over your many Astronomy on Taps? A favorite beer, favorite cocktail?
Yes, one of my favorites was our bar, the Way Station in Brooklyn, made I believe they called it a pink nebula. And it's one of the ones that you make with tonic water. And then you get a UV light, and then the tonic water glows blue in UV light. And so you start at pink so that you can really see that color difference. Also, any drink that I can have outside of my house. I miss you, boss. Like I said, I'm so impressed that you guys have been doing so much for the last year, and with your drinks at home and everything. It's just wonderful, and it's so sad. I will. If you're watching and you haven't donated to GoFundMe or something for your venue, check around on Twitter and stuff like that, because we're still losing venues. Stuff is reopening again some places, but a lot of our venues have closed. And so a lot of the locations, I don't even know where we're going to open up again. New York, our venue closed. I think even Austin, which was at a really big venue, that place is closed.
Wow.
And so I know Charlottesville I don't know what Charlottesville was doing fundraisers for. But yeah, this is, I joke a little bit, but one of the things, the hospitality industry, like, is an industry that a lot of people earn their living through. And it's like having astronomy as a potential, performance to go on at a bar is, I think, a great thing to add variety to what a venue can offer, and also to kind of put science up there with like comedy and music and things like that. And so it's a great way to like level the science experience. And so we've kind of felt that suffering of the hospitality industry recently.
So kind of, I guess, building off of that, what do you hope that non-astronomers get out of Astronomy on Tap?
I hope that you learn something, like, something, whatever that is. There's always something to learn. I take a little bit for granted because I always do these kind of meta talks that aren't necessarily strictly about science. And so there is a lot of science, and even cutting edge science, that you can convey in a fun, in a short way. But mostly what I hope people learn is that you can understand astrophysics even if you're a little bit tipsy at a bar, that it's not actually that hard, that the people that put on a fancy hat or like act like they're super smart because they're astrophysicists, they're lying to you. Like, it's there isn't necessarily any secret that you have to unlock, or like some IQ level that you have to have in order to be an astrophysicist, or in order to understand the universe. Like the fundamentals, sometimes it does take a while to like wrap your head around, because some of the stuff is just so different than the way that we're used to thinking about things. But ultimately, it just takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of kind of flexibility in the way that you think about things. And ultimately, the universe is supremely understandable, and it's really fun to unlock that and to understand it. And so I hope that you learn that you can understand astrophysics, and that astronomers are just like fun, creative human beings.
It's not all Big Bang Theory. We are people.
I know, right? So much about that show that, yeah.
All right, last question. Where do you see Astronomy on Tap going in the future for the next 8 years or so?
I would love, as much as I joke about the us not having any funding and kind of doing whatever we want and stuff like that, I would personally like to provide more support to a lot of the satellites and have more of them on, like even like I said, we've had 80 different locations all over the world. I've had interest expressed from even more than that haven't quite gotten off the ground yet. And so I would love to actually be able to provide the like leg up that people need to get started. So maybe that means funding, maybe that means a little bit more hands-on for me or something like that. I don't know what that would actually take, but I would love to make sure that everybody who wants to host an Astronomy on Tap gets the chance to do it. And so I would like to continue sharing it with the astronomy research community. And I want a TV show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming out, DJ Color Sagan. We really appreciate it. Tell Emily Rice to, get her act together and start coming to these
lost,
talks.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me. Congrats on your anniversary.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we are going to have our trivia. So I'll go ahead and invite Arvind to come on up. AOT from the ISS. Yes, we had hoped. We had talked in our dreams about potentially having it show from the space station, but alas, not to be.
Okay, so thank you, Carly/Emily, for giving us a great talk on what Astronomy on Tap is and teaching us about our roots here. Michael, can you see my screen now?
Yes, you're good.
Awesome. Okay, so for tonight's trivia, which will be my last time as trivia master, at least for a little while in the future, our theme is your hosts. So for those who are tuning in for the first time or who would like a refresher on how trivia works here, each month we'll have a round of trivia in the middle of the two talks with 15 questions that follow some astronomy theme. This month's theme is your hosts, specifically Michael and Jacob. I'm going to ask a series of 15 questions. You will answer them at this URL down here, which I believe Michael will also put in the YouTube chat for those of you who are following along there. And the team that gets the most questions correct will earn one of our wonderful prizes. In the event of a tie, I will choose the team with the best astronomy-themed team name as the winner of the teams that tie for the highest score. So if you think you're doing well, try to come up with something nice and creative and astronomy-themed, and I will hopefully select you. So with that, let's get started. The prizes we have to offer are some astronomy-themed masks knitted by our friend Macy Houston, some magnets, bottle openers, and beer koozies. To start off with an example question, just so you know what sorts of things I'll be asking and how to answer them. The first example is Jacob Luhn and Michael Rodruck are astronomy and astrophysics graduate students at which university? Hopefully, those of you who are tuned in right now will know the answer to this is Penn State. They are both grad students here at Penn State and both seem to be graduating. Question number 1. Before coming to Penn State, Michael used to work at which observatory? And the hint here is that this observatory is very well known for producing a Nobel Prize winning result in 2017. Number 2, and I'll go back through all of these again after getting through all 15, just so that you all have a bit of time to refresh your memory about what I'm asking and then reconsider your answers. So number 2, Michael's favorite book series shares a name with which of Saturn's moons? So the answer here has the name of one of Saturn's moons in it. Number 3, the constellation Pyxis, also known as Blank's compass, is also known as Blank's compass. And a hint here is that this is the blank is also Michael's favorite MLB team, where MLB is Major League Baseball. Also, so we will ask you to submit your answers before the end of Astronomy in the News, which is the segment that immediately follows this, and I will remind you of that as we get through these. So number 4, which type of rocket served as the launch vehicle for many of the Apollo missions, including the Apollo 11 moon landing? And Michael very impressively 3D printed a scale model of this rocket, which you can see in this picture here. I think it's also in the
And
background.
hand painted it as well.
3D printed and hand painted. We don't want to downplay his accomplishments, I'm sure. It's also in the background of his image here on the live stream. So next time he pops in, you should be able to see it in the corner. Number 5, Michael has visited the something temple. Michael, do you know how to pronounce that? Because I don't.
I think it's Menagera, but I'm not entirely sure.
All right, Michael has visited the Menagera temple in Malta, which was designed and built to mark what type of astronomical event? And that's a picture of the temple here. Number 6, the sun was in the constellation Pisces during Michael's most recent birthday. In which month was Michael born? There is a bit of leeway here because there are 2 possible months that can correspond to Pisces right now, but you guys should all just know Michael's birthday by heart, so it should be an easy question. Number 7, featuring a picture of Pickles here. Michael fosters dogs for Centre County Paws. How many dogs has Michael fostered? The answer is equal to the sum of the number of moons of Neptune and Pluto. And this pup right here is Pickles, who is Michael's current foster dog, probably taking a nap somewhere. Is he taking a nap right there?
I don't know where he is. He's somewhere in the house. I'm sure he's sleeping though.
Number 8, so this one applies to both Michael and Jacob before we shift to Jacob focused questions. Number 8 is how many Astronomy on Tap State College talks have Jacob and Michael given? Not including tonight because they are giving the talk after this. But the number I'm looking for is the combined number of talks they've given. So how many has Jacob given plus the number that Michael has given? Okay, and number 9, starting with Jacob's themed questions now. What was the title of Jacob's 2017 Halloween costume? The hint here is that it's related to our November 2019 trivia, which featured a singer and an X-ray telescope. You may have also seen on the intro slides that Jacob is the unanimous winner of best Halloween costumes for our astronomy department. Pretty easy to see. So what I'm asking here is what did Jacob call this costume? Number 10, last April, Jacob gave a talk on gravitational microlensing for Astronomy on Top on the Couch, which I think DJ Carly Sagan just talked about in the previous talk. And his talk featured an image from his favorite film trilogy. That image is here. So I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's on the right-hand side of this slide. So we're asking for the name of Jacob's favorite film trilogy. Number 11, Jacob is a big fan of Calvin and Hobbes. What is the name of Calvin's spacefaring alter ego? So this specific alter ego is not pictured here, but Jacob sent along this nice comic panel to include because it sometimes seems to apply. Number 12, for our October 2020 event, Jacob dressed up as which Star Wars character from the planet Kashyyyk? So Jacob was dressed up as a Star Wars character for our Astronomy in the News segment last October, because it was Halloween and he felt like dressing up for it. We would like you to tell us which character that was. Number 13, Jacob's favorite superhero gains his powers after getting bitten by a radioactive what? And the hint here is that the answer here is also the namesake of this nebula. Not the specific one that bit the superhero, but in general, those. So this nebula here. Number 14, Jacob is from the state of blank, which was also home to the astronaut Neil Armstrong. And number 15, our last question, this painting, which is a Jacob Luhn original, features a snapshot of the blank simulation, which traces the growth of structure in the early universe. Jacob is a talented artist, for those of you who weren't aware. And a little bonus, because I felt like it was necessary to include here, what's the deal with the blue square? So if you can tell me what that blue square means, what it represents, you'll get an extra half a point, and maybe avoid a tiebreaker and maybe pull ahead of somebody else that's doing well. Don't think too hard about it. If you don't know the answer, you won't get it by guessing. If you do know the answer, you know the answer. So go ahead and submit your answers before the end of Astronomy in the News. I will really quickly, though, go back and cycle through these again. So number 1, before coming to Penn State, Michael used to work at which observatory, which was known for producing a Nobel Prize winning result in 2017. Number 2, Michael's favorite book series shares a name with which of Saturn's moons. Number 3, the constellation Pyxis is also known as Blank's compass. The blank is also Michael's favorite Major League Baseball team. Number 4, which type of rocket served as the launch vehicle for many of the Apollo missions, including the Apollo 11 moon landing. Number 5, Michael has visited the Minajra Temple in Malta, which was designed and built to mark what type of astronomical event? Number 6, the sun was in the constellation Pisces during Michael's most recent birthday. In which month was Michael born? Number 7, Michael fosters dogs for Centre County Paws. How many dogs has Michael fostered? And the hint is that it is equal to the sum of the number of moons of Neptune and Pluto. Number 8, how many Astronomy on Tap State College events or talks have Jacob and Michael given combined, not including the immediately next talk after this? Number 9, what was the title of Jacob's 2017 Halloween costume, which is related to our November 2019 trivia theme, which featured a singer and an X-ray telescope? Number 10, last April, Jacob gave a talk on gravitational microlensing for the Astronomy on Tap on the Couch live stream event. His talk featured an image from his favorite film trilogy. Number 11, Jacob is a big fan of Calvin and Hobbes. What is the name of Calvin's spacefaring alter ego? Number 12, for our October 2020 event, Jacob dressed up as which Star Wars character from the planet Kashyyyk? Number 13, Jacob's favorite superhero gains his powers after getting bitten by a radioactive blank, which is also the namesake of this nebula pictured here. Number 14, Jacob is from the state of blank, which was also home to the astronaut Neil Armstrong, and actually many other astronauts as well. Number 15, last question, this painting, a Jacob Luhn original, features a snapshot of the blank simulation, which traces the growth of structure in the early universe. And as our bonus, I would like you to tell me what the blue square represents here. So again, submit before the end of Astronomy in the News, and with that, I will pass it on to Brianna.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so welcome back to another segment of Astronomy in the News. Today we have a few different updates. It's kind of a hodgepodge of a few short topics. So if you've been tuning in for the last few months, you will have heard me talk about the Mars rover Perseverance and specifically the helicopter Ingenuity. Last month, I told you all that we were waiting for Ingenuity to be dropped off at its departure location and take the first helicopter flight on a different planet. Actually, this morning, Ingenuity was able to successfully take that flight and lift it off 10 feet above the ground. This happened about a week later than it was originally scheduled because they had to do a software update and they were having, I think, a few issues with the power supply. Most recently, I heard just through the astronomy side of Twitter that the test flight shook some of the dust off of the solar panels, and now Ingenuity is receiving more power. So we should be seeing some more flight from Ingenuity in the coming weeks. But ultimately, the main goal of this little helicopter is just a tech demo to prove that we can fly a helicopter on another planet. And hopefully Ingenuity will pave the way for future flight exploration of Mars. We also have a JWST update. So JWST, for those who are out of the loop, is the very long-awaited NASA telescope that has been in the works for years and years, infamously running late and over budget, but it is scheduled to launch on Halloween of this year. And everyone in the community is extremely excited because JWST is going to do a ton of good science. So the way this works is astronomers submit proposals for the projects they want to do, and then the Time Allocation Committee, or TAC, for JWST ranks these proposals to decide whose projects get priority and who gets to use the shiny new telescope first. And the results came out recently. Over 1,000 proposals were considered and only about a quarter of these were accepted. So it was pretty competitive, but it's going to be a really exciting first run of research with JWST because we're going to be learning a lot about galaxies, stars, exoplanets, and even more. That's a little bit on the serious astronomy side of things, but on the not so serious side of things, April 1st is April Fool's Day, and astronomers do observe April Fool's Day. There are often some joke papers posted on the archive, which is just a open access research sharing platform. And so I thought I would highlight a few of my favorites. So there was a study on biscuits, which took a little jab at Americans and our classification of scones versus biscuits. And since I am not British, I don't really know what a Jaffa cake is, or if that's how you even pronounce it. But I was entertained at a thorough analysis of what is essentially just some sort of prepackaged cookie or something. There was also a great paper analyzing floofy objects at optical wavelengths. In layman's terms, that's looking at cats, complete with figures. So I think we can all appreciate taking a step back from our serious research and looking at some cats for a few minutes. There was also an excellent paper analyzing Taylor Swift's entire discography, categorizing happiness, eye color, all sorts of different things. And there's even code to go with it. So you can actually install the Taylor Swift package and run the code, and it gives you a quiz, and then it matches you up with which Taylor Swift songs best match your state of life. So I did that. I highly recommend it if you're looking for something to listen to. And then the last silly April Fool's paper I wanted to point out is I'll Finish It This Week and Other Lies, which is funny, but also felt a little bit personal. So as you can see from this figure, astronomers tend to take a lot longer programming than we hope to take. So that's all for this week's Astronomy in the News. We hope to see you next month.
All right, thank you, Brianna. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Jacob Luhn to come up, and we're going to give a talk together. So this is just going to be kind of a retrospective look back at our time in astronomy, State College. So if you do have questions for us, again, go ahead and type them in the chat, and we can answer them at the end. So go ahead, Jacob Luhn.
Great. Yeah. So as Michael said, we're here to give a look back on 4 years of astronomy on Tap State College. We heard from Emily earlier about kind of the larger astronomy on Tap community and how that got started. and a lot of the fun events that have happened, not just in the US, but across the world. But for this talk, we're going to be doing a deeper dive into our own story here at in-state college. So buckle up, here we go. We're gonna first start off with kind of the history of how we got started. So at least for me, how this started was I was sitting in my advisor's office, Jason Wright, and we were talking about potential research opportunities, and he asked if I had heard about Astronomy on Tap, which I hadn't. So he explained the idea, and I was like, that sounds pretty cool, and sort of started gears turning and thinking about this. And this was my first semester here all the way back in 2017. So then the next step obviously was to begin some of the planning. And we spent a good amount of time planning before we actually started up. Early on, it was a lot of meetings among several grad students, kind of just to build a game plan, figure out if this was something people were interested in, if we could actually get this started. And these meetings looked eerily similar to this meeting here, even with the little phone in the middle of the table, looks a lot like our office. But I also had the chance to reach out to several other Astronomy on Tap locations, notably Seattle and Austin, Texas. And I was able to attend an event at Seattle in summer of 2016 to see how they ran things. That was my first time actually seeing an event and seeing how these work. And they also gave us a lot of interesting tips and tricks on getting started, things to keep in mind. This is kind of the larger Astronomy on Tap community that Emily was just talking about. And so once we had a lot of this information, we had our game plan, the next step was to start looking for a venue, which was a little challenging since we had some specific needs. We needed a place that could accommodate anywhere from 30 to 50 people. We didn't really know how many to expect, but for several hours. We also didn't have any audio or video equipment, so we needed a place that could project slides, have a sound system, etc. And we also had no money, so we were looking for a place that wasn't going to charge us a fee or anything like that, if possible. And that's probably the biggest constraint here. And so we emailed and we called and we visited several places. And let's just say that between this and trying to solicit speakers, we've gotten pretty used to not getting any response over the years. So, but we did have a good response from Happy Valley Brewing Company. And so we met with the owner and the manager there. And after the meeting, here's a little snippet of what they had to say. And they were very interested in working with us and thought that it would be a good addition to their barn and would be pretty interesting. So we're all ready to go. Michael and I are excited. But before we can have our first event, we need a logo. So Emily talked a bit about kind of the logos as well, but as you can see, there's kind of a trend here among the Astronomy on Tap State College locations. But I kept going back to this Seattle logo, which I really liked and I thought did a really good job of incorporating all the proper elements of Seattle with the trees, the sky chart to indicate astronomy, and all of it coming out of the tap. And so I reached out to the person who made this logo, asked if they would mind if I borrowed heavily from their design, and they were more than happy to let me do that. And so my first attempt at a logo is here. Looks kind of similar to what we ended up with, but as you could see, we've got this galaxy tap with a bunch of stars spilling out to fill up our glass of beer. We also have the constellation Leo the lion, redrawn as a Penn State Nittany lion. I'm pretty proud of that. And then also some planets over here arranged to evoke the Penn State Nittany lion paw print. And so this was our first pass. I took this to the multimedia specialist in our department just to get his thoughts on it. And he had some really good insights. I think the most major one was to switch the lion and the paw print so that the lion is facing inward, and that does actually feel a lot better. And this is these are things, I'm not a graphic designer, but these are things that people who know art actually know. And this is really cool. I really liked it, but I thought that it was maybe a little flat and needed something more to pop. and I suddenly remembered my Beyonce, and so I put a ring on it, and voila, we have a logo. So now that we have our logo, we can jump right into our very first event, April 10th, 2017. Go ahead, Michael, you can take over from here.
All right. So yeah, we really didn't know what to expect for our first event. We had advertised by passing out some flyers around campus. In our department, we even went to a local radio station and did a short little bit there to kind of promote our event. And we had our first one with speakers, Dr. Thomas Beatty, Becky Dawson, Jonathan Jackson there in the middle. He was actually flying out that day, so we didn't get him in the jumping up and down photo. But we had a really good event. We had 46 people show up, which kind of blew away our expectations. And so it really also solidified that this is something that that Happy Valley would want us to do. Because if we show up there with no people and we just talk in front of empty chairs, they're probably not going to want us around. So this is a pretty exciting to see that many people there. So that was our first event. So kind of what has happened since then? Well, we've had a lot more events. These are all the flyers from our past events. I used to have them all hanging up in my office before I moved offices, and I was actually running out of space because we had so many. Um, so we started out having 3 speakers per event. Realized that that was way too difficult to handle with 3 people doing trivia, grading, and trying to announce them all. So we narrowed it down to 2 people. We really picked up our game on making on the flyers. I should say Jacob did because they got much more intricate as we went on. And then of course we switched over to going online and doing virtual streaming in the pandemic era. We also started handing out prizes. So many places have trivia. We have prizes. We started out using t-shirts that we had from Astrofest. So one that I'm wearing right now is back from 2013. They donated us some t-shirts at cost. We also got some mugs from the Astronomy Coffee Co-op. And then we added in some magnets, a koozie. We partnered up with Central Pennsylvania Observers, CPO, to create some bottle openers. And we also got some masks. Obviously, this was in 2020, hand sewn by Macy Houston. And you may be able to spot a few of these magnets around town in State College. I've got one on my car. I'm assuming that this is one from the Central Pennsylvania Observers, but I'm not entirely sure. So if you do have a magnet, go ahead and tag it onto your car. You can do some free advertising for us as you drive around. And then we also wanted to start selling some stuff. So we went up to Infrared Arts in State College, and they're a laser cutting company. They were able to cut us some coasters in our Astronomy on Tap logo and the Happy Valley Brewing logo. We spray painted it with a whole ton of lacquer, and so now it's waterproof. And we're able to sell those in person at Happy Valley during our events. And they did pretty well. They sold up pretty well. So hopefully the new crew of Astronomy on Tap will continue the tradition and create some cool new merch that we can purchase. So we are virtual. At some point, we will be going back to Happy Valley Brewing, but who knows when that will be. So one of the things, of course, that you miss being in person is that you can't go to a bar, can't order a drink. So we decided to go ahead and make our own. So as you saw in the beginning, Jacob has kind of taken over that role, made a whole concoction of astronomy-themed drinks. So you can go ahead and listen to astronomy and get a slight buzz at the same time, especially if you made this drink, which has a good amount of liquor in it. And so one of the things with going virtual meant that we could expand beyond just speakers in State College. So before we were limited to just people in the department or people who were visiting. And so this allowed us to get people that we wouldn't ordinarily have been able to get a hold of, people across the United States. Even went international with one speaker from Vancouver, Canada. Yes, that is international. We will count that. So it's really allowed us to spread out our speaker audience and get a lot of different talks we wouldn't have been able to normally.
And that kind of rounds out the history of Astronomy on Tap, but we wanted to, or Astronomy on Tap State College, we also wanted to tell it a slightly different way and share a few statistics from over the years. So as you've probably heard now, we've had 45 total events, and 11 of those have now been virtual and 34 in person, which means Michael and I have been to Happy Valley Brewing Company at least 34 times, which is, at least for me, the most I've ever been to a restaurant in State College. We've also had 96 total Astronomy on Tap State College talks given by 75 unique speakers, 18 of which were non-Penn State speakers. And here's just a small handful of some of our speakers over the year, both in person and virtual. And so as this number suggests, we've had a number of people who have given multiple talks. And so Michael and I, and maybe this answers a trivia question, but hopefully you've already submitted, and I don't think Arvin's grading anymore, but the winners here, Michael and I, this is now our fourth talk. You can maybe split hairs given that Michael gave an impromptu talk last event. So maybe 4.5 for Michael. But we've also had 2 speakers that have given 3 talks each, Thomas Beatty and Chris Palma. Thomas there was shown from our first event. And then we've also had a number of speakers who have given 2 talks over the years. This might be news to many, but Michael hasn't been the sole host of Astronomy on Tap State College. Chris Palma hosted 1 event. I hosted 2 events, but Michael is by far, he gets the crown. He's had 42 hosting events. And I'll note that the 3 events that were not hosted by Michael were the 3 prior events where Michael was giving a talk. So he has still spoken at every single event.
So how many beers have we had? Well, would you assume that we had 2 at every event? That comes out to about 68 beers consumed at Happy Valley Brewing Company. That number will vary depending on who is driving that day. Might have more or less. So then another question might be, how much money have we spent at Happy Valley Brewing Company? Well, I went through my bank statements and I counted up, and I have spent $607.01 at Happy Valley Brewing Company. We'll assume that Jacob has also spent an equal amount. So, you know, Happy Valley gets they get a commission out of having Astronomy on Tap. So it's a good thing to have these events at your restaurant because they bring people in, they bring money in. So it benefits both parties here. So how many hours of Astronomy on Tap is that? It's about 67.5 hours of Astronomy on Tap, 45 hours in talks. We've got trivia. We've got kind of other time spent in there for Astronomy in the News. This isn't counting the time that Jacob and I would spend getting there early, an hour ahead of time to set everything up, you know, getting in our drink and food orders, or the fact that every week we spend at least 1 hour planning the next event. So there's a lot of time in the brewery. There's a lot of time spent out of the brewery planning these events. So there is more that goes on behind the scenes than you might just see here on the screen.
Right. Okay, so now it's time for the moment you maybe didn't know you were all waiting for, which is it's time to hand out some awards. And we have some very special awards to give out for the very best of Astronomy on Tap State College over the years. We're calling these the Tappies. So let's roll out the red carpet and hand out some awards. So our first category is Best Trivia Name. We've had a lot of great names over the years, but a few honorable mentions here is the Fantastic Four, Particle Your Fancy, Einstein's Greatest Blender, Orion's Melt, which was suggested for our first menu item for a astronomy on grill in the future, potentially, Comet Me Bro, Darth Matter, Astro Christmas Tree, which I think was especially great because it was our astrochemistry themed event. Also happened to coincide with December, so it worked really well. That's a great name. Super no very few answers, and late heavy bombardment. But the tappy goes to 3CPO, which I always thought was a really clever name. This was a group of 3 Central Pennsylvania Observers members. And so I always looked forward to when they were here and would fill out the trivia, and I'd see the 3CPO. I think one time they had 5 people and it was 5CPO, which maybe wasn't as fun, but I think this is still pretty clever.
All right, so best event theme. We've tried to keep the talks related to each other, and so we've tried to create these themes for all of our events. So one of the first ones we had was the timeline of the universe. And so we had the life and death of the universe, Big Bang to present day, end of the universe. So going all the way from the Big Bang to what's going on right now to how things will end when the universe potentially dies. And then another favorite was New Year's 2019, time for New Year's resolutions. So we had a talk on using sundials to tell time, and then we had another talk on adaptive optics, so how you can improve your resolution of your telescope. Pretty good puns there. But certainly the tappy has to go to a night of ISS and fire. So we had a talk on ice cream, which is a cosmic ray detector, and the space station. And then we had another talk about the death of Cassini when it plunged into Saturn's atmosphere and died. So a great callback to Game of Thrones for this title.
All right, our next category here is best trivia theme. We've got some good honorable mentions here. One being an extraordinary trivia, which was during an X-ray themed night. And so all of the questions and answers here were related to something that had to do with the letter X in space or astronomy or science fiction. We also had a great trivia once, all about conspiracy theories, and Michael came dressed appropriately here, you can see, with his tinfoil hat to deliver the trivia. And then also a special shout out to, we've had a few different rounds of movie posters over the years, where you have to guess the movie title based on the poster where the title has been removed. And I'm including this here as an honorable mention, mostly just to shout out my own work and see it get some credit, because it took a lot of effort to remove these titles. This one's pretty good, let's be real. That's a pretty good job removing some titles, so needs a shout out there. But the tappy for best trivia theme has to go to our Swift trivia, where each question was a quote, and you had to guess if the quote was from an article that talked about Taylor Swift or from one talking about the Swift satellite. It was actually fairly difficult, despite the answers being pretty obvious. It was more of a game of reverse psychology, and if it seemed too obvious, you wanted to say the other one. So it was kind of fun for that. And I think this was maybe the only event where we planned the actual event based on our trivia idea. We had this trivia idea, and so we created the event around it. So definitely has to get the tappy here.
All right, so most trivia wins. Well, we haven't kept actual track of the winners. We don't have those sheets, but there's been 2 very standout winners. One of them is Jason Wright, who almost every time he's shown up, either him or his group has won or scored very high in trivia, but definitely the winner has to go to Howard Bond, who he won so often that he started giving the prizes to the runner-up because he just had all of them already. So congratulations to Howard Bond, or his alternate title, The Late Heavy Bombardment.
That's pretty good too. All right, our next category is for the best event flyer. We've had a lot of good flyers over the years, as you saw in the small scale here, but here we'll honorable mention a few. The first being the event for the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. You can see a great flyer here with an Earth, a little space rocket, and lunar module, and the moon. Pretty solid flyer. also have to give a shout out here, as long as we're talking about this event, and Emily actually brought this up too. We tweeted about this, but the event had Michael going through and doing a live demo of basically getting to the moon with the Kerbal Space Program. And so we tweeted this, as we do all of our tweets. And the Kerbal Space Program official Twitter actually somehow found our tweet and very quickly after tweeted this back at us. So that was a highlight for us, getting some recognition from the official Kerbal Space Program Twitter. You can see it's got the little official check mark next to it. That means something special.
Also,
but
was
then
able to successfully land on the moon, although the spaceship was sideways, but they still did survive the trip.
yes, no Kerbal deaths, I believe. Another honorable mention for Flyer goes to one of our spooky space events. You got some real spooky skeletons and ghosts and pumpkins and a witch flying around. It's just a good flyer, needs a shout out. But the Tappy for best poster has to go to our Star Trek Star Wars event. We've got the Astronomy on Tap state logo as the Death Star. We've got the Enterprise and the X-Wing here blowing something up in space. You've got some perspective Star Wars crawl text. It's just a good poster. I want to go to this event. I'm pretty proud of this one. It deserves a Tappy.
All right, best spooky talk. We have tried to make all of our Halloween events spooky themed because there's lots of spooky stuff in astronomy. But the honorable mention has to go to Faye Krause, who gave a fantastic non-Halloween spooky talk titled "Who You Gonna Call? Ghost Particle Busters." So she was looking at neutrinos. We were all very impressed and kind of blown away by this talk. But even better than that was the Raffaella Marguti's group at Northwestern, who created this own slide for us to have, who was talking about supernovae and the death of stars. And so they really 100% went all out for this theme. And if you actually look at the actual video of this, you can see that not only was the theme very spooky, not only did they have a very spooky talk, but they really dressed up the part as well and had a very spooky presentation, clothing, and costume as well. Yeah, there it is. You can see them. You can see them there.
Yeah. It was really good. Our next category is Best Dressed, where we're sort of combining the traditional Oscar categories of costume design and also hair and makeup into one category. Our first honorable mention is Jason Wright, who also Emily mentioned in her talk, this same shirt you could see on Tabby Boyajian. They're advertising here for their Kickstarter, Where's the Flux, Tabby Star, trying to raise money to get some observations of this unusual star. And so pretty appropriate dress there. Obviously, we have to give a shout out again to this group at Northwestern who went above and beyond for this spooky theme. And another shout out to Chewbacca, not because it's a costume, but for hair and makeup, because look at all that luscious hair. That's just some great hair. But our Tappy for Best Dressed goes to Mike Heraclius for his heavy metal outfit here. This is another spooky event. He's wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt. He's got the face paint. He's got the wristbands. This is unfortunately the best picture we have, but I think you can still see he went above and beyond there too. Okay.
All right, so our best song Tappy. Well, honorable mention has to go to Julia Craigenow for her updated version of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, I Know Exactly What You Are. We weren't able to get her to sing in front of our audience, but she still did give a fantastic presentation using updated version of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. But the Tappy has to go to the Swift song. So not only did we plan this amazing trivia of Swift versus Swift, but when we were researching this talk and trying to figure out stuff to talk about, Jacob.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. We found out that NASA had actually paid an a cappella group to write a song about Swift. by the Chromatics. And so we, of course, had to take that song and convert it into a sing-along. So this is the
Swiftly swirling, gravity twirling, neutron stars about to collide. Up in a galaxy so far away, catastrophic, it'll play a roller coaster gamma ray ride. Super bright explosion, then never to repeat again. How are we supposed to know?
How about a telescope rotation swiftly onto the location of its panchromatic afterglow? In just a
they gotta win.
Yeah, that's too good. Yeah, and I cut you off there, Michael. So I don't know how much was caught there, but yeah, this song was created and we made this little sing along to go along with it. So it was pretty great. All right, and our final tappy goes for the best talk title, which was actually voted on by our Twitter audience. So we started with a pool of 32 of our favorite hilarious, creative, thought-provoking titles over the years. And this was voted on over the past several days on Twitter, tournament bracket style. And we got down to the final two, which was Revisiting Julia Child's Recipe for Primordial Soup by Chloe Stanton, and How to Lose a Galaxy in 10 to the 12.7 Days, The Evolution of Dusty Star-Forming Galaxies by Sinclair Manning. And so we're excited to announce that the tappy goes to How to Lose a Galaxy in 10 to the 12.7 Days by Sinclair Manning. This was a great talk title. My own opinion, this was the best. I couldn't have voted for anything over this, so I was glad to see other people thought the same. So congrats to Sinclair for winning the tappy. Okay, and now before we open up for questions and head out, we wanted to give a few thank yous before we sign off. So we wanted to thank Emily Rice again for giving a talk and for being part of this larger Astronomy on Tap community, and all the Astronomy on Tap locations around the world for helping us get started, giving us those tips and tricks, and also just being part of this larger community that we can turn to. We also wanted to thank Happy Valley Brewing Company for taking a chance on us, and even if they maybe didn't initially believe and were a little skeptical, didn't know what to expect, they let us do our thing, and it's been a really great run. Hoping we can go back in the future sometime. Another thank you to all of our trivia participants and our trivia winners over the years. I've had a lot of fun seeing people react to trivias. I've had a lot of fun making trivias over the years. It's been a really fun time.
And we also, of course, have to thank all of our speakers, all of our in-person speakers. Most of the time when we tried to get someone to give this in-person talk, Jacob and I would literally just go down the hall and knock on their door and say, hey, you want to give an Astronomy on Tap talk? And many people said yes and gave in to our quiet peer pressure. So big thank you to everyone who did agree to give our talks and make it out to Happy Valley Brewery. Another big thank you, of course, to everyone who did our virtual talks. So, you know, by now we're all experts in Zoom, but this was kind of a learning experience in the very beginning. We had really great turnout, really great group of people who decided to give talks from, again, all around the country and even internationally in Canada. So we really want to thank everybody for agreeing to give these talks, because, of course, we couldn't have Astronomy on Tap if we didn't have those talks. We also want to thank everyone who's helped out with Astronomy on Tap behind the scenes. So Christian Gilbertson helped out with Astronomy on Tap for a few months while we were still in person. We are now passing this off to Arvin, Brianna, and Steve, who we are quite confident will carry on the Astronomy on Tap State College tradition to an adequate degree. We're sure that it'll still be watchable. So really thank you to all of you for continuing and helping on Astronomy on Tap, both in the show and behind the scenes. And finally, of course, we want to thank you, the viewer. We couldn't do this without you. We literally could not do it. Happy Valley would have kicked us out if we didn't have any people attending. So we really are grateful, and it really has been amazing to see people come out to our events, people show up in the live stream asking questions and everything. So really, thank you to everyone who has attended an Astronomy on Tap event. This is, we do it for you, and we really appreciate you coming out. So with that, we will open this up for questions. So if you do have questions, you can type them into the chat. We have personal favorite talks. So Jacob, do you have a personal favorite Astronomy on Tap talk?
Well, that's tough. A lot come to mind. There have been some really good ones over the years. I'm a little biased at the moment, having gone through this this tournament, and so a lot of the ones with clever titles are the ones that are standing out to me right now. I mean, Faye's talk, "Who You Gonna Call Ghost Particle Busters," was really great. Yeah, the spooky talk from the Northwestern group. I liked Chloe's a lot, where she played the video of Julia Child's recipe for primordial soup and then kind of updated it. A lot of good ones. I don't know that I have a absolute favorite.
Yeah, I think I was very impressed with the Northwestern group. Their spooky themed talk was really above and beyond what I was expecting. I was really excited to see the talk by Stephen Moss and Richard Paul, who gave the talk on We Could Not Fail, is a story of the first African Americans in the space program. I'm a huge fan of that book, as I think I made it clear in that talk, and it's really cool to um, see them give a talk here at Astronomy on Tap. So those are probably my two favorite questions. Um, did the tinfoil hat work? The tinfoil hat, I think, did work. I got my vaccine. I'm not anti-vax or anything like that. So I guess tinfoil hats do work. Um, I guess another question, Jacob, what do you think would be the most difficult trivia session that we had to come up with? The most, I guess, which one that you put the most work in, the most effort?
Oh, I mean, it's got to be the movie posters for me, putting in the most effort. I mean, I spent several hours like meticulously trying to recreate clouds in like the Hidden Figures one and the Arrival one. I mean, these are details that didn't need to be there, but as a perfectionist, I suppose I wanted it to be perfect, and I didn't want it to like give away like how long or short the title was, or like, oh well, there was clearly an F here. So I spent a lot of time on those, and I enjoy them because I like movies too. So yeah, maybe we'll say that one.
Okay. Yeah, I think the pub one was a fun challenge. We're trying to figure out, is this a real London pub or is this an old-timey constellation that got thrown out? And so trying to figure out, like there's a lot of pubs that sound pretty ridiculous, and so they could easily be any kind of constellation. Um, do you have a favorite Taylor Swift album?
Oh, yeah. So it's probably going to seem like I'm a much bigger Taylor Swift fan than I actually am. That's probably how it comes across. I definitely enjoy Taylor Swift. I'm not a diehard Taylor Swift. So probably whichever album is most recent, that's probably the one that I'm listening to at any given time, and my allegiance changes. I'll say that.
All right, that's fair. I don't know any Taylor Swift albums, so I can't really answer that. Well, I guess anything else that you would like to add, Jacob, before we go to the end?
Best of luck to Steve, Arvin, and Brianna. That's about all I got. See if you can get that live stream from the ISS. That's the gold standard.
They will be kings and queens of Astronomy on Tap if they can stream from the space station. Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Jacob. Thank you, me, for giving this talk. Pleasure having you out here again. So we can go ahead and go to our trivia answers. So Arvind, go ahead and take it away again.
All right, 1 second. So, Thanks, guys, for that enlightening talk as well. I hope Brianna, Steve, and I will be more than adequate going forward. But I understand you trying to set the bar low for us, right? We don't want to burn out too early.
Yeah. I'm trying to help you out here.
Okay, so I'll go through the trivia answers now. You all should have submitted quite a while ago because some of the answers have been revealed now in Michael and Jacob's last talk. Again, what we have on the line here are some prizes. So number one, before coming to Penn State, Michael used to work at which observatory? The correct answer here is LIGO. If you've ever spoken to Michael in person, he's probably talked about how he used to work at LIGO. He likes to, I won't say brag, but he likes to talk about this all the time.
Hey.
It is really impressive. It's an incredible project, an incredible result. Number two, Michael's favorite book series shares a name with which of Saturn's moons? The correct answer here is Hyperion, or the Hyperion Cantos is the name of the book series. I actually really like it as well. I haven't read all of them yet, but the ones I have read are really interesting. It's great science fiction, also really great literature in general. Number three, the constellation Pyxis is known as the blank compass. The hint is that this is Michael's favorite Major League Baseball team. Michael is from the Seattle area, spent a lot of time there. So if you knew that, you might be able to guess that this would be the Mariners. It's the Mariners compass. I think a good handful of people got this one correct. Number four, which type of rocket served as the launch vehicle for many of the Apollo missions, including the Apollo 11 moon landing? This was the Saturn V rocket. Number five, Michael has visited this temple, which I won't try to pronounce again, in Malta, which was designed and built to mark what type of astronomical event? The correct answer is equinoxes and solstices. A lot of people put eclipses, but it wasn't quite sophisticated enough to do that. And I think the idea was that on the spring and fall equinoxes, as the sun rose, light would shine directly down this path through the entrance and illuminate the temple. Number six, the sun was in the constellation Pisces during Michael's most recent birthday. In which month was he born? The correct answer, Michael was born in March. I'm disappointed in those of you who didn't know that. I would have also accepted April though, because the sun is actually still in Pisces. We're in April now. This is not the same as Michael's traditional horoscope, which would be Aries, because of precession. I think it's precession. It's one of those effects that makes the actual position of the sun in the sky at different times of the year change on thousands of year timescales. Number seven, Michael fosters dogs for Centricati Paws. How many dogs has Michael fostered? So Neptune has 14 moons and Pluto has 5, which makes the correct answer 19. Somebody put 1 million. Michael, I don't know how you'd fare if you had fostered 1 million dogs.
I'd have to hire a few carpet cleaners for that.
Yeah, so the correct answer is 19. He has fostered 8 since the start of Astronomy on Tap. But that's still quite a big number, and congratulations to Michael for helping out all these wonderful animals. Number 8, how many Astronomy on Tap State College talks have Jacob and Michael given, not including tonight? So including tonight, as they said, they would each have hosted 4. The correct answer though here is 6 because they gave 3 each in prior events. Number 9, what was the title of Jacob's 2017 Halloween costume? The hint was that it was related to our November 2019 trivia, featuring a singer and an X-ray telescope. As they just explained, that trivia was about Swift and Swift, so the Swift telescope and the singer Taylor Swift, where we gave you quotes and asked you to distinguish between the two. Jacob's costume here was actually Taylor Swift, so a tailor as in somebody that works with clothes, and a swift, the type of bird. So it was a pun, as are all of Jacob's Halloween costumes. They're all great, but I think this one takes the cake. Number 10, last April, Jacob gave a talk on gravitational microlensing for Astronomy on Tap on the Couch. And his talk featured an image from the Lord of the Rings film trilogy. So this is an image of the tower and the Eye of Sauron. I think Jacob calls this a Sauron plot or Sauron diagram. Number 11, Jacob is a big fan of Calvin and Hobbes. What is the name of Calvin's spacefaring alter ego? Nobody got this correct. I would not have gotten this correct. There had to be a difficult question in here, though. The right answer is Spaceman Spiff. Number 12, for our October 2020 event, Jacob dressed up as which Star Wars planet from the planet Kashyyyk? This was Chewbacca. Jacob showed a picture of Chewbacca in the last talk just now. Oh, and to be clear, he also voice acted to go along with the costume, so nobody could understand what he was saying, but I think he gave subtitles, so it was okay. Number 13, Jacob's favorite superhero gains his powers after getting bitten by a radioactive spider, and the correct answer is Spider-Man with the hyphen. I didn't give you credit if you forgot the hyphen here. It doesn't matter. No, it did not change the eventual winner. Number 14, Jacob is from the state of blank, which was also home to the astronaut Neil Armstrong. This was Ohio, and I think 21 astronauts have been from Ohio, which is, I think, 3rd or 4th among all states. Number 15, this painting, a Jacob Luhn original, features a snapshot of the blank simulation, which traces the growth of structure in the early universe. This is the Millennium simulation. And the bonus question here was, what's the deal with the blue square? The blue square is the artistic trademark from Zima Blue, which was an episode in the Love, Death, and Robots short film anthology, which is on Netflix. I think Jacob painted a series of paintings with the blue square to imitate Zima Blue. All really great. And I felt like I had to include this one because today, Love, Death, and Robots got renewed for a 3rd season, and the 2nd season's premiere date was announced. So the winner tonight was named Best Astronomy-Themed Trivia Name. They took it very literally and also happened to have the highest score. So there was no team name tiebreaker here. They just got the most points with 11.5 out of 15. The next highest was 10.5 out of 15, so that half point didn't make a difference either. I'll be in contact with you to make sure you get your prizes. And I think I'll give it back to Michael now.
All right, thank you, Arvin. And if we could get everyone back on. There we go. All right, so thank you again for all coming out to Astronomy on Tap, especially to Jacob and mine's last event. We really appreciate having you come out here and coming out through all the 4 years that we've been doing this. But it is time for us to pass the torch, and of course we are taking that somewhat literally. So we pass this on to our future Astronomy on Tap hosts. And hum the Olympics theme song. Da, 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 da. Alright, there you go. Don't let the light of Astronomy on Tap go out.
All right, thank you everybody for tuning in today. As Michael and Jacob said, they are no longer going to be your hosts going forward. It will be myself, Brianna, and Steve for the next few months at the very least. Thank you for tuning in. We hope to continue these online events for the next few months and then one day get back to being in person. So we hope to see you again in May. Thanks for tuning in.